Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet. About to be joined by Ken Weed from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show. After a game that leaves me racking my brain and trying to figure some things out here. One of the reasons I'm trying to figure things out is because I'm asking for answers about something that I keep seeing with the Winnipeg Jets. And I'm not getting them. I'm not getting them from the players. I'm not getting them from the coach. And I don't know if this is a trade secret that I keep trying to dig in on. And that's why I'm not getting answers. Or if they haven't thought about it enough to explain, I don't think that that would be the case. But it's what we saw tonight in the Winnipeg Jets starting out that game, not carrying the play, not having the puck, getting outshot grossly. And then all of a sudden it's 1-0 Winnipeg Jets, right? And then the next period starts, and all of a sudden the Winnipeg Jets have 3 goals on, I think, something like 8 shots or something like that. And it's this idea that you leave the door open just a little bit of a crack for the Winnipeg Jets, and they kick the door in. And asked Mark Schiefele about it. Didn't really get much on that. Asked the head coach about it. Didn't feel like I got a lot on that. Cole Perfetti probably gave me the most, but still not a lot on it, I would think. So I had to start thinking about it, and I've got some thoughts. So why don't we hop in the Toyota and take the Jim Pattison Toyota on Region opening drive and talk about this? You're going to love this for all the people who have the the remnants of the snake charmer in their heads, because I think the snake charmer has something to do with this. Now, let me be clear. I don't think anything about the Winnipeg Jets is snake charmer-esque anymore. I used to use that as a term where it was very impressive, but in the end, overarchingly, I thought it was soft hockey. I thought it was the kind of hockey that only worked in the regular season. I thought it was typically the kind of hockey that only seemed to work against lower end teams. I thought it was the kind of hockey didn't get the Jets anywhere in the playoffs. I thought it was part of the explanation of why for years the Jets didn't really get anywhere in the playoffs after their 2018 run, which was not snake charmer hockey. I really thought the year 2019 was when that kind of got into things. But one of the things about snake charmer hockey was you would have these games where the Jets just were not the better team. They'd be getting caved in, and all of a sudden they'd win a game 4-1 or something like that. And it would just be these games where the Jets were shot volume, shot volume, shot volume. A lot of them would be Connor Hellebuck wins, but the Connor Hellebuck win doesn't explain how the Jets end up scoring and how often it would be their top scorers who would end up scoring these nice, really pretty goals after allowing 11 straight shots. They'd come back down and score a goal. The one thing I can think about it is, out of that remnant of the snake charmer hockey, that was a style, but it was a style based on a theme. The theme being, we're on our heels here. How can we be a team that's on our heels, but not on our heels at all, ready to pounce at any specific moment? And I think that got developed through the snake charmer years, or was kind of existent, and then they used the snake charmer to kind of work on it. But I think what we see now is that holdover, that understanding, that kind of being able to sit there and be defending and defending and defending, and the other team having the puck and the other team cramming it down your throat. But the entire time that you're doing it, not kind of letting yourself get overwhelmed and being ready at any moment to kind of see that chink in the armor and be like, if they make a mistake, we're going to go right there and get that kill shot, right? It's a knight from the medieval times, and he's getting bowled over by his opposition. But as he's getting bowled over, he's not holding on for dear life. He's not just barely surviving. He's parrying, and he's knocking back, swipes and knocking things aside with his shield. And the entire time he's just watching for that one little opening. And I think through those years that still exists, because on a night like tonight, it's the Mark Scheifele's and the Kyle Connors, the top line, that kind of gets the Jets out of a jam in this game. It's not a good start at all. It's the kind of start that could kind of snowball on you and you could be out of the game. And instead, the Winnipeg Jets turn it around so quickly and snowball it over something like a 6 or 7 minute stretch of hockey in the late first period and the early second period, that's it. The game's over. After they go up 3-0, the game's over at that point. The Winnipeg Jets have this. They can now defend. They can now collapse. They can fall back. They don't need to get a lot of shots, although I have admiration for the idea that they didn't just sit back and get their 8 shots and then get 3 more for the rest of the game or go 15 minutes without a shot. They actually pushed, but that's another thing. I just want to close out the point on the whole idea of what they learned in the Snake Charmer era was you had this team that had this excuse me, this capability to be getting caved in, and all of a sudden it would go down. You remember how it would be? It would whoosh, whoosh, whoosh down the ice, pass over here, weave back and forth, boom, it's in the back of the net. Now, what you find is it's these moments where the Winnipeg Jets take and defend, and all of a sudden they strike. It's like, did anyone see the movie Snatch? The pikey boxer played by Brad Pitt. He could take a beat, and he'd get that one shot in, and it was a knockout punch. That's what we see from the Winnipeg Jets, and we see it in this moment. It almost comes out of nowhere. It's Josh Morrissey, and it's one of these plays where he gets the puck on the line, and Vegas is kind of doing everything right. And the defender sees Josh Morrissey move to the middle, and he even kind of takes the right angle and is going to try and push him along the blue line, have him run out of space. And Josh Morrissey does one of those jukes on the blue line, goes in, and this is one of those plays where all eyes on the ice. Go back, rewind that, and watch it. Everybody on the ice is watching Josh Morrissey. They've stopped watching their man. Everyone is watching him. What does Kyle Connor do best? He's been doing it. Go back and watch the goals that he scored when he was in Michigan. He gets lost when people aren't looking in the right direction, gets in the right spot. Josh Morrissey gets every person on the ice looking at him over to Kyle Connor, and boom, it's in the back of the net. 1-0, right? Well, the Vegas Golden Knights are still feeling pretty good about themselves. They've had the run of the first period. They're going to recover. They're going to come back down, score a goal, get back into this thing. Except early in the second period, it's just a nice, quick little play again where the Jets are defending. The puck goes up, a little bit of a mistake, and Mark Schiefele knows exactly where Alex Iafallo is. Boom, the puck is over on his stick. It's in the back of the net. It goes from no danger to immediate danger. It's the pikey boxer. You're kicking his head in, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're lying on your back because he's got that precise knockout punch. And I guess it's one of these things where I've said in the past, these are powers that I think the Winnipeg Jets used to use, not for evil, but I think they didn't use them, or they used them carelessly, or they used them flippantly. You know, their ability to come back in games, I always point out, was a remnant of the Paul Maurice era. But I saw it as a really, really great superior team that would toy with, my whole thing is the tortoise and the hare. They would toy with their opponents, and then they would, okay, fine, here we go. And they would come back and they would win games. But then when it really mattered, they couldn't pull that off anymore. I think that the Winnipeg Jets took that ability to come back from the Paul Maurice years, and then last year, and you're starting to see it lately, apply that in a way that was like very, very honest. We're going to just grind in games. But when it comes down to it, if we need a goal at the end, we're going to go out and we're going to generate that goal. The 1.6 seconds is an example of that. Going to go out and get that done. They took something that they used in a casual nature, and they made it honest, and they made it work for them. And I kind of see that as this game tonight. At first, I was looking at this and I was like, okay, is this going to be one of these games where the Winnipeg Jets, are getting their heads kicked in, and then all of a sudden they come out and they win a game that they shouldn't win, and the high danger chances, all this kind of stuff. And that's not what happened here. The Winnipeg Jets, yes, had a slow start. Yes, Vegas was carrying the play. Yes, they were getting the shots, but the Winnipeg Jets were a night defending themselves properly. What does that look like? It's keeping the center of the ice clean, keeping shots to the outside, not giving high danger scoring chances up. And as the entire time that this is happening, you're looking for that chink in the armor. They found it once, they found it twice, they found it 3 times. All of a sudden, they're in a position where the Golden Knights aren't coming back. And I just realized at this moment, I'm talking about knights and parrying and sword play and all this kind of stuff. And they're playing the Golden Knights. That's an accidental comparison there, ladies and gentlemen. But I do think it's one that makes sense on this night. The Winnipeg Jets took their ability to get back into this game, and they honestly applied it. They honestly defended properly, even though the other team was on the charge. They broke down their opponent. They made kill shots. They were the more precise swordsmen on this night. They were the better defenders on this night. And that's why at the end of this night, they are standing sword in hand with the Golden Knights lying on their back and the Jets' foot planted squarely in their chest. That, for me, here SK Winnipeg says, Renny is so talented an orator that he's surprising himself. Hey, I mean, that's how it goes sometimes. That was a happy accident. Let's just call it that. A happy accident that happens. You know what? You'll have lots of happy accidents if you hop in the old Toyota. If you head on down to Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent, we just went on the opening drive. You can take a little drive yourself and head down there this March, where you'll find your next Toyota, Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent. Strong, capable, and powerful, the 2026 Tundra is the perfect blend of rugged and sophisticated, ready to take you on any adventure. This month, finance the 2026 Tundra from 4.79%, plus eligible loyalty customers receive a 1% rate reduction. But hurry! The offer ends March 31st in about a week. Visit Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent for a test drive today. All right, time to bring in the man with the best music in the business. Here comes Kenny. Great to see you. Great looking win for the Winnipeg Jets on this night, and a great looking guy sitting right there with a great suit combination. I've shown this one off before, people. This is the kind of one I can't act like I haven't worn it before, because once you've seen it, it's eye popping for the folks. And of course, because we headed on down to Vittorio Rossi and got dressed up by the boys down there. So if you want that eye popping look, head on down to Vittorio Rossi on Corden Avenue. Walk in, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will do you up right. Ken, interesting game here tonight. Take it away.
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly, it changed quickly, I guess, if you will. Shot volume was pretty high. I mean, high dangers, according to Natural Stat Trick at Even Strength, were 5-1 in the first. I mean, Connor Hellebuyck was certainly busy. There were some quality chances, don't get me wrong. I'm with you there all 100%. Jets seem to be sitting back, I think. Definitely, as Scott O'Neill admitted, the zone time was pretty stacked heavily in Vegas' favor there, Sean. But they found a way to kind of stay in it and get themselves kind of legs underneath them, all those things. And then, too, just, late goal from Kyle Connor. Just an exceptional play by Josh Morrissey, Sean. I mean, I know that, folks in our chat room have been fairly vocal that, we think that Josh is still working his way back from the injury he suffered at the Olympics. But man, that is just supreme vision on that pass for the one-timer by Connor for his 32nd. If you look at it, he kind of looks off the defender along the boards. He sees him in the periphery and just absolutely perfect pass across. Now, yes, I think that's a play the seam shouldn't be available structurally, but Josh created that with his vision. So, and then as you touched on, Sean, I mean, the second goal by the Jets, which turns out to be the game winner, it's kind of a nothing play. I mean, Shea Theodore hard rim to nobody, except the nobody in this situation. There was nobody with his jersey there. Mark Scheifele was there. And not only was Scheifele there, he identified where Alex Iafallo was essentially before the puck got to him. and that allowed Iafallo to catch Aiden Hilt by surprise and rifle the shot home. So, yeah, I mean that's a. I mean, I would say it's an uncharacteristic play for Shea Theodore. Again, I watch or I pay attention to the Golden Knights and try to see them as often as possible. That's not a play that the Olympian normally makes, but he was, he made the situation there, and the Jets made him pay. And then after that, they sort of carried a lot of the play from there. They stabilized in the second period, had a shot advantage in the second, and didn't just sit back on their heels in the third and allow Vegas to keep pouring it on. I mean, we've seen this movie before, Sean. I mean, the Jets went into today's game 1 win in their last 10 against Vegas. And, oddly enough, and I wrote about this in my story in the Winnipeg Free Press, when Kyle Connor said this morning in his scrum, when he was surprised by the statistic dropped to him by Kelly Moore, he said, well, that sounds like we're due. And Kyle Connor was right. The Jets were due, and they were able to cash in, and that allows them to stay within 5 points in the race here, which we'll get into in a second. But overall, lots of things went the Jets' way, Sean. And, we've been talking a lot about opponents and whatever else. And yes, there'd been some issues for Vegas, just 3 wins in their last 9. But, in working the room this morning and talking to some people, around the team and players on the team, including Keegan Colasar, the Manitoba product, he thought that their game was kind of rounding into form of late. I watched the game against Dallas. They played an excellent game against the Stars. And again, great start against the Jets here, but the Jets did a better job of getting to their game for a longer amount of time. And that's allowed them to stay within 5 points of the Nashville Predators, who beat the San Jose Sharks this evening.
The way I take this one away is I don't necessarily think the Jets got to their game more than the Golden Knights. I honestly think that the Golden Knights kind of got to their game. Like they played pretty much how they would like to play. They moved the puck very effectively through the neutral zone. They defended well, I thought. It's these moments, right? Like this wasn't one of those wins that the Jets got where they bowl over their opponent, where they, force them into turnovers, where they trap them in their own zone, where they grind them for a while. Like it was just the Jets found those moments in the game, I thought was the difference in this one. But the biggest difference, I thought, was the Winnipeg Jets, especially against a team like that can grind. It's another one of these wins I see the Winnipeg Jets getting down the stretch, and I think it's been the majority of their wins down the stretch, where if you're going to beat them, you have to be willing to grind. And that's just it. You have to get to the front of the net. You have to get the puck there. And the Jets just weren't letting the puck into the front of the net. But I just thought, too, if you notice, there was a lot of plays. Mitch Marner had about 4 of them where he took a shot on net and there was traffic in front of the net, and yet Connor Hellebuyck just very easily and casually gloves it out of the air because he's got a clear sight line. And, someone had said it earlier on, what we saw from him in the Olympics was a goaltender that when Connor Hellebuyck can see the puck, he's typically going to stop the puck. It was Connor Hellebuyck himself who said the team did such a good job of letting him see the puck, letting him know where it was going to come from. That's what happened on this night here tonight. And I just thought this is one of these things where right now Jets are finding a way to win because what they do is they've got this kind of scoring touch that I talked about, but beyond that, they weren't going to give that up to the Golden Knights. They weren't going to turn the puck over, pass to the other side of the ice, and boom in the back of the net. Their structure was too good. They were more structured than the Golden Knights. And can the Golden Knights beat that? For sure they can. But what it means is you've got to come into Winnipeg. You got to get up that day. You got to be ready to grind, and you have to go and grind for 60 minutes to get in front of the net and get a couple ugly ones, and they weren't getting ugly ones today. This is a night where in the end, I don't know that I agree with you that the Jets got to their game and Vegas didn't, but I definitely think that the Jets outcompeted the Vegas Golden Knights on this night.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Sean, Vegas doesn't give a lot of goals up in transition. And the Perfetti goal is a 3-on-1 rush, essentially. They don't turn the puck over a ton. Theodore turned it over on a goal. So the Jets were opportunistic for sure. I don't know. I thought that their fourth line did what their fourth line does. I mean, I saw Howden and Colasar grinding, but again, they had one high danger chance at 5-on-5 in the last 40 minutes of play. So to me, I don't.
Well,
think
they're also the line that's on when Mark Schiefele gets the puck over to Alex Iafallo. It's in the back of the net.
Right, but that's an unpressured giveaway by the defenseman. I mean, I don't call that a coverage error because they had control of the puck. So, I mean, Iafallo wasn't really in a dangerous spot at the time of the turnover. So, anyways,
that's the point.
Vegas only had one high danger chance, Sean.
Yes. I
mean, that means they didn't get to their offensive game for me.
Yeah, I think we just said the exact same thing.
But
it feels like you're arguing for the sake of arguing, Ken.
Oh, I'm not.
Why are you being so difficult right now? I just finished talking about how good the Winnipeg Jets were to keeping them on the outside.
But then you said, they didn't get to their game. You said they didn't get to their game. How can they not get to their game if they only gave up one high danger chance?
Oh, I thought they got to their game in their transition of the puck, the way they like to move the puck, the way they moved to the neutral zone. But what the Jets didn't give them was the one area of the ice that they needed to get to. And they didn't seem willing to pay the price to get there. And I think that's the one thing that the Winnipeg Jets are doing is, hey, it's a good one for the Winnipeg Jets right now. They're the Carney and they're standing outside the ride and they're saying, you must have this much moxie to win this game here tonight. And they're forcing teams to put themselves to the test. And the teams that are putting themselves, hey, that's why they had trouble against Boston. Boston came in and said, yeah, we need to have that much moxie. We'll have moxie all night long. If we take a look at this game and see how the Boston Bruins played, the style of play that they had versus what we saw from the Golden Knights, it's clear the Boston Bruins were competing harder in that game than the Vegas Golden Knights did. But if you're the Winnipeg Jets, you got to give them credit. It's kind of like you're cornering the market and trying to figure out how to make money. The Jets have figured out how to make money or how to get points, and they're doing it by saying to teams, you have to work really, really hard. Cole Perfetti talked about it. It's a playoff style, right? They're forcing the other team to play a playoff style. You're not going to get to pass it around, zoop, zoop, zoop. You're not going to snake charmer us and put it in the back of the net. You're going to have to go grind it in. And guys like Colasar and Howden, those guys, they're very capable of doing that. On this night, though, the Jets wanted to keep them outside more than that team wanted to get to the inside.
Yeah, I mean, that's generally not an issue for Vegas, especially not against Winnipeg. But yeah, they didn't look like that was not Vegas's A game, is what I think we were in agreement there for sure.
We're 1,000% in agreement.
And some of that has to do with how the Jets played. So sorry, I thought you weren't agreeing that when I said that the Jets got to their game better. That was my contention.
You who's being obstinate. It's you who's being obstinate, not me.
Yeah. Okay.
Question for you, Ken. Question for you.
Yes, fire away.
This is another example of the Jets having one of those good, we're not letting you inside kind of games.
Sure.
Scott Arniel, he always talks about it right off the bat. The Jets are supposed to have gotten easier to get inside on with the loss of the likes of Luke Shen and Logan Stanley. And yet since they've been gone, we've seen there's a pretty good book of games now where the Winnipeg Jets have continued on with the kind of defense they want to be playing. How are they pulling it off with the loss of so much beef on the back end?
Well, again, I think that we've talked about this quite a bit. I mean, I think the Jets are spending less time defending on a lot of nights when they've played well. I think that the game with the Bruins, definitely notwithstanding, where they defended a lot of that game, and certainly parts of the Pittsburgh game, but I think they're doing a better job of not getting hemmed in their own end for, extended period of time. I mean, we talked about that being an issue for the Taves line early in the year before they, maybe got going a little bit. We talked about that when Perfetti wasn't, kind of up to speed. We talked about it when Sandberg was working his way back and certain things like that. But I think I think their commitment to their structure has been higher for the most part. And again, I think because they've been able to have the puck a little bit more and, outside of the early, woes in this game where Vegas had quite a bit of zone time and generated some pressure. But yeah, I mean, on the nights they defend the front of the net and are boxing out better and things like that, then they're having more success, as you mentioned. I mean, Connor Hellebuck deserves his flowers. I mean, 26 saves today. Yes, some of them were from the outside, but again, he allowed the Jets to stabilize by playing well in the first period when there were 5 high danger chances at even strength. So only goal he allows is the it's basically a backdoor tap for Colton Sissons after a really good pass by Rasmus Anderson. So anyways,
and where was he? He was inside. He was in front of the net. One of the few times a guy found himself alone in front of the net. The blueprint was there
on the penalty kill, but yes,
following it. Yeah.
But I mean, or what are you seeing? Are you seeing something else that I maybe am missing, or?
Well, I'm seeing, and this is, it's going to kind of dovetail nicely into the next conversation because people want to talk about youth here. Sunny Side Up says, I'm really liking these youngins better than I thought, faster. This one by Elias McCracken says, wish they started introducing young players with some runway much earlier in the year, like when they kept losing despite the returns from injury. These are two great candidates, I think, for the Flame and Comfort hot takes, because that's what we're going to talk about right now is youth. But before that, hand out those hot takes brought to you by Flame and Comfort, Manitoba's premier supplier of fireplaces, wood stoves, inserts, and everything hearth related. After 50 years heating up your world, Flame and Comfort has moved to 1465 St. James Street, where you are going to find, when you get down there, it is one of the most impressive showrooms in Western Canada. You don't need your hot takes to keep that warm feeling inside, folks. You can visit Flame and Comfort, and they are going to take care of it for you. Okay, what I'm seeing is just players that are doing a really, really good job of understanding the system. Now, maybe we should expect this because good farm teams play the same system as the big club. So when you make the transition from the farm team up to the big club, you know where to be. But the way that the Winnipeg Jets are playing right now, there's a unison that exists within it that I'm surprised by the ability of the Brad Lamberts, of the Elias Solomonsons, even of the Isak Rosens to get into this system and going back to the theme about the night with the armor and everything like that. If there's a chink in the armor, there's a way to get in and suddenly you're on the inside. The Winnipeg Jets just haven't been giving that up. And so what I'm seeing, Ken, is just a game plan that is being followed better than it had been followed in the past. Now, I'm wondering, Ken, and maybe this is more a penalty kill thing, and I'm definitely seeing it more on the penalty kill, but it seems like the players on the top are maybe quite a bit more aggressive than the defenders are down low. And I'm wondering if what's happened for the Winnipeg Jets to be more effective, because let's be honest, the Winnipeg Jets in so many areas of their game, defending, getting to the puck, getting on their forecheck, have been so much more effective than they were earlier in the year. And to me, what it is it's all of these little tweaks have finally fallen into place. Head coach Scott Arniel talks about the practice runway that he had coming out of the Olympic break, where he was able to kind of get guys nailed down on all these different things. But I guess just what I'm seeing is what we saw last year from the Jets, not specifically. I'm not saying it's the exact same thing, but what I am seeing is last year, the Winnipeg Jets had a plan. Everyone knew their part in the plan. Everyone executed that plan. Everyone knew their role within that plan. And that's what I'm seeing right now. It's not the exact same. It's not as aggressive as it was last year. It's a little bit more neutral zone trappish when it's coming, when the team's trying to come down ice. But this is what I'm seeing from this team is young guys who've understood the system, walked into the system, executing the system along with the rest of the guys. And so for me, they've found a way to be in the right spot over and over and over again. And that's the most important thing to be if you're the Winnipeg Jets. And the other part about that, I said this last year, the Jets system was their MVP last year. I said it over and over and over again. I said the problem with the system going into the playoffs is that if you give someone time to, dissect that system, you can have problems with it. But when you've got a system that works like that, it's a real tall order to ask a team to come rolling in, having played Minnesota the night before or the Oilers 2 days ago or whatever, and come in and be like, okay, The Jets are playing a really good system. They're playing as a 5-man unit right now. They're really hard to beat. We're going to learn a whole thing on how to break this down. Most teams don't want to do that. So what most teams do is they come rolling into town and they say, okay, let's just play our game and see if we can beat them with our game. That's what the Vegas Golden Knights did tonight. And what I saw over and over again, Ken, was just Vegas executing their game until they got down to the Jets' end and just got split off to the sides into undangerous areas by the Jets' ability to keep them to the outside. And I thought it was no more obvious and prevalent than the penalty kill. What did you see on the penalty kill, Ken? Because I thought it was brilliant for the Jets tonight.
Yeah, I mean, especially in the third period, I thought they did a much better job of, attacking their pressure points and not allowing those backdoor cross seam kind of plays. So, just aggressive. You're seeing more confidence. I mean, confidence is a fickle friend, I guess, if you will. And I just think the Jets are playing faster. I mean, that's something I should have mentioned earlier. And I think that you're saying the exact same thing. Yes, they have they've injected some speed along with that youth for sure. They have more mobility on the back end now with Solomonson playing such a pivotal role. That net drive quickly, Sean, by Lambert. I mean, that's the most direct play we've seen Brad Lambert make in 5 seasons or 4 or 5 seasons in the organization, or 4 seasons for 3 seasons, I guess it is. After going back to Seattle, but to me, that's the kind of play that Brad Lambert needs to make with frequency, Sean. Right? I mean, no one's asking him to be Nikolai Ehlers, but that speed element can be so dangerous if he starts putting the shoulder down and attacking the net. Sean, Jeremy Lauzon, one of the most physical players in the NHL. So the fact that he went shoulder down and wasn't afraid of some contact with Aiden Hill, I mean, that's the kind of play that if Brad Lambert can do that with some regularity. Again, I'm not saying this is vintage Blake Wheeler going wide on a defenseman. I mean, circa 91-point seasons, but that's the type of speed play that the Jets have been lacking most of the year, right? That ability to put your shoulder down, put the pedal to the metal, get to the net. And again, hands in tight. It's just a little chip shot by Lambert. But the reason why it's dangerous is because he puts his shoulder down and gets to the hard areas. So see more of that from Brad Lambert. I mean, that's part of the consistency we talked about the other day. But yeah, penalty kill is a little bit more solid. I mean, a little bit unlucky on the first one. I mean, great play by Anderson, but Sissons, I'm not even sure he got his stick or foot on it, whatever. But overall, the Jets had 2 situations where they kind of let their opponent back. They had the opportunity to let their opponent back in the game that they had controlled a good chunk of, and they got 2 big kills. And Sean, one of those kills comes with Dylan Samberg in the box. He's one of the best penalty killers on the Jets after taking that high sticking minor on Riley Smith. So that means other guys had to step up and do the job. So it's an interesting situation for them. And again, now the Jets have to do that. They've been doing it a little bit more often, or a lot more often, but now they got to do it, 2 games in a row against Colorado if they want to try to keep these slim hopes alive.
So if you're talking about Brad Lambert, maybe he's been given the Pristine Roofing wake-up call finally, and something people have been waiting for a long time. You know what that means. Time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call at 204-981-6289. He's the guy you want down at your place for all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. Give your home the Pristine Roofing and Siding wake-up call. You will be glad that you did. And I'll say this, and he's probably got the advantage because he's been within the organization. I talked about sharing the same systems with the Manitoba Moose, so he's coming in, he's a little bit more familiar. But right now, if you were to choose which prospect you were more excited about with the Winnipeg Jets, Isak, Rosen, or Brad Lambert, it would clearly be Brad Lambert. He's starting to flash that speed. Like you said, he got direct here tonight, starting to make some plays, doing those little bit of cutbacks. He's starting to kind of understand, hey, I talk about it all the time, flow, and how important it is in the NHL. It's extremely important for those faster players, and I think he's finding his flow. Before this, it's looked like speed kind of going, not nowhere, but just misdirected at times. Now it feels like every time he's using that speed, he's using it with a purpose, and that was a good opportunity to see him doing that on this night. I wanted to bring this comment up here because someone is asking this question, and I get why you asked this question, but right here, it's by Rob Mahoney. Says, I don't understand why a coach needed a week to change things up 50 games into a season. These are smart coaches, smart players. It should have been done during the 11-game swoon to save the season. Well, this makes all kinds of assumptions. One of them being that they weren't trying to change things out, but one of them being that all you need is a smart coach and smart players, and you can just turn things around on a dime. The evidence that you're seeing in the league would suggest otherwise. Certain things like, the St. Louis Blues, who now all of a sudden are playing a lot better hockey. The Nashville Predators, who the Winnipeg Jets are now chasing for that final playoff spot, who were out of it early in the season. And Ken, we're talking about a coach who started this process of trying to get this team to figure it out last season. From the beginning of last season, Andrew Brunette has been working on this team with some of the smartest players that this league has ever seen in the Ryan O'Reillys and the Steve Stamkoses, and they're just trying to figure it out. I think, Rob, you're suggesting that this is easy, that it's just like change things around, put the players here, boom, it's done. I don't think you're kind of understanding, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Scott Arniel sat there and did nothing for the entirety of the season and was like, let's entirely change things up, which we know is not the case. We saw the way that their game was trending. We saw the things that they were trying to do. He used that break of time to solidify things. But I've heard a lot of this so far this year, and this is some of the comments that we talked about earlier in the year, Ken, where people are saying, well, change things up, play a new system, and that's not easy to do. Making tweaks, that's not necessarily easy to do. I think what you saw last year with the Winnipeg Jets was a team that they'd have all these periods where they were a little bit off, and then they'd come out the next period and they'd absolutely shoot the lights out because, as you and I discussed so often last year, Ken, Scott Arniel was really good at making in-game adjustments, but people think those in-game adjustments are like, this guy goes over here. They're tiny, tiny, tiny little tweaks. And so I guess when you're the Winnipeg Jets and you realize you can't be the team you were next year and you're going to have to switch some really, really large things up, it's not as easy as saying, you go here, you go here, you go here. That's how it starts. But then you have to play off the next guy. So to get to how the Jets are right now, where they're so good and they're a one-man unit defending, keeping players out of the guts of the ice, every guy, when this guy moves here, this guy knows he's got to move just a little bit like this. And it's almost a little bit of a feel thing. You don't have that feel right away. So to change things around, I know what you're saying, Rob, but to me, that's oversimplifying things. And I think teams like the St. Louis Blues, teams like the Nashville Predators are the perfect example of that. Teams that took time and time and time. Like your suggestion would suggest that Andrew Brunette started last year and tried to do absolutely nothing until just recently and got to be a smart coach and made some changes, and the smart players on the team immediately adopted those changes. And now they're a better team right now. We know better. Ken and I have talked to Andrew Brunette quite a bit. This has been a process of changing and tweaking and trying to get guys to find certain things and trying to get guys to buy into their roles. It's not as easy as you're making it sound, Ken. Not you, Ken, but letting you talk on this.
For sure. And again, we know the Jets... we know that personnel has a lot to do with what had been transpiring at certain times. And yeah, I mean, coaches have to wear their responsibility for it, but like, this wasn't the coaches forgot what a successful hockey team looks like. And we talk about recency bias all the time, Sean. I mean, even Rick Bonus's Jets, who turned defending from a weakness into a strength, still fell flat on their face that first year, right? It didn't happen overnight. So to think that this can happen in a 1 or 2 week span, it's just not the way that it works often. Now, again, some teams can catch lightning in a bottle or change on the fly, but it's an abnormal situation. And Sean, we talk about changes. I mean, Brunette and the Predators, yes, but I mean, look at St. Louis. Like, St. Louis changed their game last year, Sean, but during the Four Nations break, right? When Jim Montgomery basically got to have a training camp after being on the job for a while. That's what made them a dangerous team. That's what allowed them to push the Jets to the very limit in that first round series that went double overtime in Game 7, right? So, anyways, it's not a knock on Rob, but I mean, it's just not a simple task that just snap your fingers and play harder or play smarter and play faster. I mean, it's something that takes some time. Let's get to Schiefele.
Well, if it was, every team in the league would just turn around and do it. That's the assumption is just quite simply coaches are smart, players are smart, just go get it done. That's kind of entirely neglecting the art of getting players to buy and getting them to understand things. If anyone should understand that, it's the people in Winnipeg who saw Rick Bowness walk in his first year, drag his team to first place in the Western Conference, only to watch them fall back into their old habits. Hey, hockey is instinctual at its best. When a team is at its best, teams that win Stanley Cups, they're not teams who just found a system a couple months ago and followed that system. They're teams that have been developing a system year after year after year after year to the point that now they know that system so well that it's instinctual. Because of that, the Winnipeg Jets, who are working hard on Rick Bowness's system, started to fall back into the instinct of the system that they were playing before that. Like, this is not easy. This is to get to the point where you don't have to think to do something takes reps and reps and reps and reps and reps. And so the idea where you get to go over those reps in practice and explain to people in the moment, blow the whistle and say, you can't do that because of this, that's extremely, extremely helpful. So anyways, I personally think, to the point of what you're saying, I think that Scott Arniel was late to the idea that his team could not play the exact same style as they played last year. I've seen the tweaks that he's made. Do I think he was late to making those tweaks? I do. I personally do. I think it took longer than it should have to realize the Winnipeg Jets can't be what they were last year, so they're going to have to change. But I also know in the NHL, put it this way, if where that team was at any point when you realize that you can't be the team you were last year and you're disastrously not as fast as you were the previous year, to on the fly, not entirely scrap your system, but to tweak it and move it around and rebuild it and teach your players on the fly to get to something to the point that they're almost getting themselves back into the playoffs. Everyone who's like all over Scott Arniel here will maybe not be understanding what a feat that would be as a coach to Jim Montgomery did it last year. He should have been given a lot of credit for that. He took a team, turned them around, gave them a new system, and got them to where they were going. It's kind of similar what Scott Arniel is doing with the tweaks. He finally understood what his team was, built a system around that. It's working to the degree now that they're at least giving themselves a shot. Anyways.
And just quickly, Rob Mahoney also says Blues turned things around on a dime in January 2019, went on to win the Cup. I'm not suggesting it's easy, but it has been done. Yes, it's been done. That's 100% true. But that's the only time it's been done, when a team went from 32nd to winning the Cup. Their goaltending completely changed after Jordan Binnington got recalled, and they had a bunch of guys that they were willing to put on waivers that started playing well, and they caught lightning in a bottle and deserve full credit. But that is, I mean, it's a great example, but it's one example. It's the
example.
It's the comet coming out of the sky that you just saw once in 100 years, essentially.
It's the equivalent of saying Teemu Solani scored 76 goals as a rookie. It can be done. Just go out and do it again.
But it hasn't been done since.
You're taking the most extreme example of something happening and saying, just go do that. And that's kind of, it's funny. Everyone brings that up. But anyways, let's get to Mark Schiefele, who after all his work was able to score to cap that game with a 4-1 victory. Good on him. I can tell you folks, you'll be able to score a great rate with Cambrian Credit Union. Getting a mortgage doesn't have to throw you off your game. While you focus on home sweet home, our friends at Team Cambrian Credit Union take care of the mortgage part with their low rates. Whether you're looking for a new home, renewing, or making the switch, Cambrian is your mortgage MVP. They can help make the next season of your mortgage path easier and help save you money. Now that's what we call a win. Head to Cambrian evergreen.mb.ca/rates for more. Ken, I tried to get Scott Arniel to wax poetic about Mark Schiefele and Kyle Connor on this night, what they've been accomplishing this season. He's just a very direct guy, and it doesn't really wax poetic the way some of the coaches we've seen in the past do. But this is just another example of Mark Schiefele being a difference maker and doing so against a team full of difference makers that he out difference made on this night.
Yeah, I mean, this is, again, Mark went three games without a point. I think it might have been the first time this year, Sean. I think there had been 13 or 14 times when he'd gone 2 games without, and I don't think it had gotten to 3 until this point. And his ability, yeah, I mean, empty netter, sure, but again, on the ice, got the empty netter by playing on the right side of the puck. But his 2 passes for goals, they're smart plays, especially the play that Iafallo. And again, the fight itself, I know, I understand there's some people in our chat room that don't appreciate or enjoy fighting, but Sean, Mark Schiefele bringing out left hands was not something that I had on my bingo card. I don't think he's done it in his previous 9 fights, and he even made light of the joke itself. And I think he landed 1 or 2 of those left hands in the tilt with Red Howden. I don't think it was a dirty play by Howden, but he certainly had intentions of throwing a hard hit. Kyle Connor was in a bit of a vulnerable spot, and Brett, this is Brett's job. Your job is to agitate and take the body against skilled players. He embraces the role, but sometimes that means you got to drop your gloves, and he was more than willing to be a combatant in that situation. At the same time, I think we've been hearing all kinds of things about how the Maple Leafs didn't stand up for Austin Matthews in some other situations, some of which get overblown, others don't get overblown. I mean, Mark was very direct and to the point also. It's how you get taught when you come into the league. It doesn't matter if you're the most skilled player or the highest point producer. He made it quite clear when that happens to Kyle, he's more than willing to go, even though by his own admission, he says I'm a terrible fighter. I mean, this is a guy who's pushing for 100 points. I mean, you don't need to be a great fighter, but he's willing to do it. And Sean, we've got the great view on our side of the press box where we sit. As soon as before Mark Schiefele even got out of the penalty box, Adam Lowry, Jets captain, is banging his stick on the boards in appreciation for what Mark did in sticking up for a teammate. I know some people may think that's not a big thing, but when you play team sports, that's part of leadership. And Lowry started it, and by the end of it, every single person on the Jets bench was standing and banging on the boards to show their appreciation for a skilled player willing to drop their mitts for a teammate in that scenario. It is, we hear the whole family thing from every team, but you can't fake that, Sean. Teams that get along and stand up for each other, that's an actual thing. And teams that don't, things don't go well for them all the time. It's not a guarantee for success, but it's something that winning teams or a winning culture, that's what teams in those situations do.
I can tell you this, and there are the people who don't appreciate the fighting. People know how Ken and I feel about this. We've made our points obvious in the past. I know that I think I've got 30 plus fights from playing hockey and senior hockey over the years. I know the rise that people got over when I did. I knew my responsibilities. I knew that there were certain people, to be honest, the entirety of your team when you had a really close team. There were 2 guys on my team, Ken, one year when we played senior hockey, and I'm not trying to make this about us, but this is just a really great example. 2 guys who did not get along at all. Like, they disliked each other to an extreme degree. They just didn't jive. And in the dressing room, they would bicker. Outside, after we were having beers in the bar afterwards or whatever, it was tense. These players didn't like each other. And I remember a game where the one player was skating off the ice and a player off the other team came and 2-handed him across the back of the legs. And the first person to jump in was the guy who extremely disliked him. And if you want to see a message that no one is going to mess with our team, or we are all here for each other, in that moment, it became obvious. And to be honest with you, it had been obvious before that, but that's just how good of a team that was at having each other's backs. And I'm going to say this right now, like, it, this is not even the biggest hit on Kyle Connor, but it's a heavy hit on Kyle Connor. And the first, you're not sitting here with the Winnipeg Jets and waiting to see who is going to step in to take care of this, or if they're going to step in to take care of this. This isn't an Austin Matthews situation, which has gone and been talked about at length ever since then. I'm kind of blown away that nothing happened about that, but it says something about the Winnipeg Jets that Mark Schiefele is the first one who's going to go out there and say, you don't do that to us without us having each other's backs. And that message is as much directed towards the Winnipeg Jets bench and that Winnipeg Jets dressing room as it is towards the Vegas Golden Knights in that situation. 4 Gordie Howe hat tricks in his career for a guy who doesn't know how to fight. This is an example. And hey, I don't remember any fights that Mark Schiefele was in where I walked away and was like, wow, he tuned that guy or anything like that. I don't think that's what it's about. But I bet you if you go back and look at all 4 of those Gordie Howe hat trick games, they're games in which Mark Schiefele is either trying to show the other team that, hey, you're not going to push us over. One of them, Ken, I'm guessing, was that game against the Florida Panthers. The Winnipeg Jets came back and absolutely bounced back or he's standing up for a teammate. One way or another, when Mark Schiefele fights, there's a message behind it, whether it's to his teammates, whether it's to the opposition, whether it's in standing up to his teammates. I think he's done it highly effectively. To Phyllis's point, I'd asked him if anyone had ever taken him aside and showed him how to fight, and he'd said, well, if they had, they did a pretty poor job of it. Good stuff from Mark Schiefele. But the fact of the matter is his timing or his understanding of when to drop the gloves within the context of the game, he's got it down pat. He's got it dialed. He may not be a fighter, but he's got the spirit of someone who is willing to fight for himself and his teammates down absolutely 100%, Ken. You want to add to that?
Not really. No, I think we've got it covered
okay,
all the way around.
Well, yeah, exactly. Which means that's what the folks at Myers Drugs do. They've got everything covered all the way around this city because they deliver all over the city. So if you have any pharmaceutical needs, if you have any health food needs or supplemental needs, call the folks at Myers Drugs and they will come to you. Ken, why don't you give Sweet Lou a shout out?
Sorry, I did have one quick thing, and I'll get to that in a second. I mean, the fight card is not what you would expect. I mean, it's not a bunch of lightweights. I mean, he didn't really have much choice in the Kachuk fight, but fought Aaron
Ekblad, right?
Aaron Ekblad. One was Ekblad, who was a good friend of his and a teammate from the Barrie Colts. He also fought Nick Hague, who's one of the toughest customers around. I mean, really tough guy. He was with Vegas at the time, and now with Nashville. So, definitely he's thrown down with some tough customers, much like when Nikolai Ehlers was going with Ryan Getzlaff and Jamie Benn during that stretch of time during his career. But folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU at LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast.
Okay, Ken, great question by Bardot. When Nino and Vladdy come back, who leaves? This is a fascinating question.
Yeah, I mean, just quickly, I mean, for the context, this was the first time Vladislav Nemestikov and Nino Niederreiter were on the ice in a non-contact jersey. Certainly not pushing themselves super hard, just mostly, past the pushing pucks around stage, but entering the conditioning phase. And, it's been quite some time since, Niederreiter hasn't played since the Olympics, and Nemestikov got hurt in the second game coming out of the Olympic break here. So coming on a month without game action, month plus for Niederreiter. I don't see this as imminent. Scott O'Neill wasn't sure, still in the week-to-week category. I don't see any scenario where they're back within 1 week. If it's within 2 weeks, I'd be surprised, but I wouldn't be shocked. Again, and I think depending on where the Jets are, what the situation is, if they're still battling for a playoff spot in that time, I do think that they would be under consideration to be put in the lineup. These guys have been regulars for a long time, but I think to Bardo's point, it wouldn't be automatically Rosen and Lambert. But let's also see how those players play in the next stretch of time. Sean, we've been very complimentary about Lambert's enhanced, consistency levels. But since I mentioned, since I maybe got a little eager and mentioned, I thought that Rosen was the kind of guy that I could see scoring 20 in the league. It's been pretty quiet offensively for Rosen. 1 goal and 1 point in the 10 games since joining the Jets. And that's not a knock on him. That's a guy who's adjusting. As you mentioned, Brad Lambert had the benefit of being in the system for several years already here. Rosen learning a new system, but his offensive impact has sort of dipped a little bit. And, oddly enough, when Rosen said, I need to get to the middle of the ice, which is where he scored his redirection goal, I haven't seen him spending an abundance of time in the middle of the ice, in the guts of the ice, getting to the hard areas. I see him confident when the puck is on his stick, but he's the kind of guy as an undersized, speedy forward that needs to get involved, get to the middle of the ice, whether that's getting there for a rebound or taking the puck there. We use the example of Lambert going wide on the defenseman. So, I like a lot of Rosen's games still, but we knew this was going to be a building process. If he was a surefire, top 6 NHLer, he could have forced his way into Buffalo's system, even though Buffalo is a very good team. So we knew there were going to be some growing pains, and I think he's going through them. And I still like a lot of the creativity. And I think this is a guy who's going to be in the Jets' middle 6 next year. But again, it's not just to snap your fingers and the guy scores 20. I mean, that doesn't happen a whole lot, even for first-round draft picks. So, they would be the most natural candidates. But I mean, again, Nyquist probably would be the first guy out of the lineup. Sean, I think that's sort of how I think you and I would be in agreement for that.
Yep. Yeah.
And then the second one, we're gonna have to see what happens from there.
Yeah, I would suggest Nemestikov goes in for Nyquist in that spot, and I would suggest on that left side, Niederreiter goes in and Rosen comes out. Right. I agree with you completely. I'm glad that we're bringing up Rosen because I think it's time to have a conversation about him and what you're seeing. As you're saying here, Ken, he's most likely he's clearly a project, right? It's clearly what can we make out of this guy. So the jury's going to be out on this player until the Winnipeg Jets give him kind of a directive of, this is what we want you to do with your summer. This is how we want you to dig into the system. This is how we want you to get comfortable with the system, so that once you're comfortable, that you can kind of show us what you can do outside of the system. But you have to take into consideration the idea that this young man's been given an opportunity. He got plucked out of the AHL. He got put into an NHL lineup on a team that's been performing well, on a team that has a lot of good players on it that he could kind of play off of, or, watch the Mark Scheifele's of the world and kind of pick up on those things. There's a lot of players, and I've said this before, there's a lot of players that have done far more with far less opportunity. He's been given a big opportunity here. And to your point, there hasn't been a lot done with that opportunity. He looks like a player to me that's just trying to hang on to the NHL. And maybe that's an issue, is that he's a player who's not, kind of being able to come in here and show this is what I can do. But at this stage right now, I take a look at Isak Rosen and I don't know what it is that I haven't seen enough from him to see what scouts saw that they thought this guy could be something. Yes, he's got a little bit of speed. I haven't seen much of his shot because he hasn't really been able to take away that shot. His passing has been, it's there, but it doesn't absolutely blow me away. His decision-making has seemed a little bit off to me, but that could have everything to do with being, trying to fit into the system and figure those things out. But by no means are we looking at this and saying, my goodness, the Winnipeg Jets found a diamond in the rough. How has this guy been buried in the minors up until this point? You can very much see why he's been in the minors up until this point. And if I'm being honest, what I'm seeing from him is less than some of what the players that the Winnipeg Jets have brought up from their own system. I think this is a player that's in danger of, finding himself in stiff competition with some of the players that are coming from below. He's been given an opportunity, and what you should be doing with that opportunity is making a play to say, hey, anyone nipping at my heels down in the AHL, I'm going to put some distance between myself and them. He clearly hasn't done that. One of the things that he has going for him, though, is the Winnipeg Jets have a history that when Kevin Cheveldayoff makes a trade for a player, they will give that player every single opportunity to try to hit before they move on from them, because they like to look like they went out and they made a trade and they knew what they were doing, right? So he'll get that opportunity, but nowhere near enough flashes for me so far when it comes to Isak, Rosen. Anything to add to that, Ken, before we move on?
I mean, just
to
10 games isn't a super long sample. I mean, I agree with you. He needs to do more, 100%. But yeah, I mean, let's see how the next 10 go, I guess. But if he gets those next
10 games, but he's done nothing to dispel the idea that he's any different than the player that we saw developing Buffalo's system. He's done nothing to put us in a position where we're like, he got out from underneath that and all he needed was a new start. He very much looks like what he's looked like in Buffalo when he's been brought up to the NHL and been given opportunities.
Yeah, anyway, that's totally fair. Just he has a longer track record of 20 plus goal seasons at that minor league level for a team that's looking for offense. Right, but on a team that's looking for complementary offense and speed. So yes, he's going to be given a chance to.
They're still looking for it. They're still looking for it from him. That's the point.
But they still had it from him.
Johnson Group got you covered play of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, you can go. I mean, it's one of two Dylan DeMello plays.
Exactly. So there's a play where Connor Hellebuck goes down and the player is trying to go and wrap around the
Mark Stone.
Sorry, who is it? Mark Stone. And back post sealed off by Dylan DeMello. Sorry, this is a different play. This is earlier than that. It's in the first period. Player goes and tries to wrap around.
Sorry, on that side.
Connor Hellebuck overcommits, and it's DeMello who's there to seal the post, and then it's later Mark Stone putting it into a dangerous area, and sure enough, it's cleared right off the bat. Like two examples again of Dylan DeMello showing that I don't know how many guys are better competitors around the net than Dylan DeMello. He is a specialist at cleaning up that area, and you can see Dylan Sandberg, who is right there in that situation, has really picked up on that as well, but a battler around the net. And once again, our winner of the Dylan DeMello We've Got You Covered Johnston Group Award, Kenny and Renny OGs. He's gonna be a Kenny and Renny OG. He's gonna be so word association with it by the time this is all said and done here. Good job by him. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. And Ken, that brings us to our hashtag, the keg save of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, I think it's either, a save on Marner. There's one on Eichel. Dorofeyev also had a good chance. Any of those three.
Yeah, honestly, this is one of those nights where, like, I thought
there's no flashy, obvious.
There's nothing flashy, nothing obvious. His ability to maybe stop pucks and not put out much in the way of rebounds, I guess for me would be the hashtag keg saves of the game. He saved his defenseman a lot of worries by not putting any rebounds out there. That's our hashtag, the keg save of the game. Doesn't matter what we think, though. Matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag, the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And that brings us to our winner from our last show, and that would be Charlie Horse 5700. Charlie Horse, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I'll have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. Ken, anything to say before we get going?
Yep, just the silky pass by Gabe Velarde. And for Cole Perfetti, that's 7 goals and 20 points in a 32-game block, Sean. So we've talked a lot about Cole this year. Obviously, the slow start due to injury was beaten to death. But coming out of the Christmas break and then coming out of the Olympic break, Perfetti has elevated his game to a level that would resemble what we were expecting. Perfetti to build on a 50-plus point season, maybe, probably push past 60 and maybe even threaten 70. So he deserves credit for his ability to get things turned around offensively, and just his overall game, I think, has improved. And also, too, I mean, that line with Lowry and Velarde has been very good. And, I think I feel like I didn't give Lowry enough credit for snapping that 24-game goalless drought on Sunday. So,
just wanted to talk about the standings for a second. So the Jets gain a point on the Kraken, who lose in the shootout to the Panthers. They gain a point on, they don't gain any points on the Predators, who now have become the bar that they are chasing, but they gain 2 points on the San Jose Sharks. And they also gain a point on the Los Angeles Kings, who lost to the Flames 3-2 in a shootout. The interesting part about all of this is you could be like, it's exciting times for the people who are still hopeful that the Winnipeg Jets are going to make the playoffs. It is frustrating times for those who are on Team Tank. Why? Because where the Winnipeg Jets position themselves right now, they were in a position where they were heading into the day in a spot to pick 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth, sixth overall, depending on how the lottery balls fall. But all of a sudden now they find themselves tied with the Kraken, who do have a game in hand, but they're 1 point back of the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Winnipeg Jets win their next game. That could put them in a position where they hop or get close to hopping 1, 2, 3, 4 teams in the standings, 5 if you count the New Jersey Devils. Like, they're in a position right now where they put themselves in a spot where if they keep pushing and keep climbing, they've been in a fairly good draft position for a long time, but they are on the verge of jumping a whole bunch of teams and putting themselves in a position where they're more than likely to pick 11th or 12th or 13th or something like that, which is, at this point, Ken, this is all in territory. This is a gambler at the table who is saying, I'm putting all my money into the middle and I'm either going to lose it or I'm going to get what I'm looking for here. If the Winnipeg Jets don't, they're in a stage right now, the way that they're playing, if the Winnipeg Jets don't make the playoffs, they're going to find themselves in a draft spot that is far from the kind of guaranteed kind of area. You never know how the lottery balls fall. Maybe it falls in their favor. Maybe it's like Kevin Cheveldayoff said that one year where they got Patrick Laine and he felt that the lottery balls fell in their favor because they were a team that kept pushing at the end of the year. They keep doing that this year, and the hockey gods who've loved the Winnipeg Jets in the past love them for it again. Maybe it turns out like that, but boy, oh boy, if you are Team Tank, and I know there's a lot of you out there, things are about to get very frustrating if the Winnipeg Jets keep doing what they're doing and don't make the playoffs. Anyways, that's it for us. Tough task for the next 2 games, back-to-backs, home and home against the Colorado Avalanche. These are the kind of games, Ken, that over the next 2 games, if the Nashville Predators do well and the Winnipeg Jets get clipped 2 straight games by the Colorado Avalanche, all of a sudden they'd be down 9 points and you could basically kiss the playoffs goodbye. But the Winnipeg Jets have done a pretty good job of surviving these tough tests as of late. We'll see if they can do it on Thursday when they host these Colorado Avalanche. Anyways, if you appreciate this conversation that happened in this space and the bickering Ken and I did at each other, you should appreciate our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Jim Pattison Toyota on Region, Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, Sweet Lou Furlan, Pristine Roofing, Flame and Comfort, Myers Drugs, the Johnson Group, the Kenny and Renny OGs, and of course the fine folks at the Keg. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. Let's do this again Thursday after the Jets play the Avalanche. Bye-bye.